As the saying goes, there's three inevitables in life: death, taxes, and Arsenal getting a season-ending injury to a key player during a run-in. It's something like that anyway. Dread it, run from it, those appear to be the three. But I'd like to add a fourth point to that eternal and unfadingly accurate list: change. Some of the players returned to training this week as Arsenal step up their pre-season preparations, and a few fans saw an opportunity in one of the photos released to produce a little before and after of Mikel Arteta in 2019 and now. With the stress we put him under, you can forgive Mikel for needing a bit more just for men these days. By the way guys, if you go back to 2015, he also looks different then too. It's called aging. See inevitable number 1. The point is, change is everywhere. Mikel's changing, the club's changing, the team's changing. As you keep helpfully pointing out in the comments, my hair's changing. Next season we will see yet more change at Arsenal. In fact, it's almost the only thing we can guarantee. That and the season-ending injury, obviously. So let's have a look at what might change at Arsenal next season. What can we expect to see, and how can we set realistic goals based on that? Firstly, tactics and selection. Every single summer, something about the setup of our team has changed, and I think this summer will be no different. Whether it was the inclusion of inverted fullbacks, moving to a lone pivot in midfield, moving to 3 in the build-up, or away from 5 at the back, new profiles, coaching, and the maturation of the team has meant we've managed to move through the gears and become better and better with each iteration, proven by our ever-growing points totals. And I think it would be foolish to believe we've now seen the finished tactical setup that we'll simply swap players in and out of. I'm sure most fans logically know that, but all too often we transpose our ideas of how the team used to play onto our judgments of decisions being made in the here and now, especially about transfers in and out, without being privy in any way to the decisions being made behind the scenes about how we're approaching our game model. What if we don't need to replace Xhaka, for example, because his role won't exist next season? I don't claim to be a mind reader, but I'm pretty sure the signings of Havertz, Rice and Timber in combination all signal an intention for another step forward and a new iteration of this Arsenal team. I'm going to offer some ideas of how I think that might shape out next season. I, as I imagine you are, am nervous about the idea of Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka both leaving in the same summer, considering their incredible contributions as a pairing. But have a look at these stats. They're Rice's numbers for various midfield-specific metrics versus our current options in midfield from last season per 90. Rice outdoes Xhaka in every metric, though it shows you Thomas Partey's incredible contribution when they're basically neck and neck. However, I want to specifically highlight the interceptions column. Here, Xhaka and Partey combined add up to 1.5 interceptions per 90. Rice makes 1.7 interceptions per 90 by himself. This guy is an elite ball winner. That is part of the reason we're paying £100 million for him. What if Mikel thinks he can afford to play with a less confident ball winner in the left 8 because he has such a talented transition controller behind him who can cover those deficiencies, so he went for Kai Havertz? What if he believes that with that jump in ability to win the ball back next season, as well as aiming for higher possession totals, the trade-off could be a more adventurous left 8 option? Then, if the left 8 is able to be more adventurous, can that mean Martinelli gets closer to goal more often, as he mirrors Saka and Ødegaard's dynamic with Havertz on the left-hand side, drifting wide? I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen. I'm not Mikel. Only on FIFA. I'm just asking questions and saying something that I can see happening. And here's another one. Some people say that Havertz will play as a kind of tip of the midfield diamond player, which I can see and I don't rule out. But if Havertz is in there as a starting point in possession, I think he'll spend a lot of time dropping into the right half space as well, as that's his most confident side, as you can see from his heat maps and watching him. If those dynamics are appearing, do we get to see Ødegaard more on the left-hand side, where he might have more favourable angles for certain actions due to his left-footedness? Does moving Martin into those zones then defeat the need for a Zinchenko, for example, in certain games, and so we flip the fullback dynamic? In comes Timber, someone who can sit in as the inverted option on the right to cover a player who's less comfortable under contact, like Havertz. Without going full galaxy brain, I suppose what I'm saying is this: don't rule anything out. Because when you drop a player into a team, you not only change the personnel, but you change the interpretation or instruction of the role itself due to the player's profile, maybe even creating a distinctly new role together. But a team is symbiotic, so because of that, other players' roles will shift too. I believe one of the big focuses next season will be getting Saka and Martinelli closer to goal, and I think conversely, Rice and Havertz and Timber can help us do that. We're not spending that kind of money on Rice and Havertz for them to warm the bench. We will see some changes, and those are two possible options. This could be the midfield diamond summer for all we know. Just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I also think we'll see a greater variety of playing staff next season. It's no secret that Mikel didn't massively trust certain players on the fringe of the squad last season, and in Man City's playing numbers and injury records, you can see the aim. 16 to 17 fit, sharp and trusted players, all playing their part. Now, I think we'll see some mainstays like Rice, who'll be our Rodri, Ødegaard, our De Bruyne, Ramsdale, Edison, Saka, Grealish and Saliba, Diaz, for all but the most pointless Carabao Cup games, but I think alongside them, we might see more tinkering. A Smith Rowe here, a Vieira there, a Timber here, a Kivior there. Different games call for different things, and I think Mikel is almost at that magic 16 or 17 number. Secondly, youth integration. Arsenal are a young team and getting younger, so on first hearing, this stat may sound wrong, but it is true, I promise. Since 2019, Mikel Arteta has given only 2 academy players their league debut, Ethan Nwaneri and Folarin Balogun, and the latter was forced due to COVID against Brentford in 2021. But even Nwaneri, by the sounds of things, wasn't massively planned either, Arteta saying he just had a gut feeling the day before the game. In his time at Man City since 2016, Pep has handed league debuts to 11 academy grads, including 5 in the last 2 seasons. Now, it's not necessarily fair to compare. The players have to be good enough, and when you're winning 5 Premier Leagues out of the last 6, you can afford to chuck on a kid at the end of another 5-0 drubbing of Watford. In his first season, when things weren't going too well in 16-17, there were no Premier League debuts under Pep. But in all competitions for Arsenal, Arteta has handed only 5 academy grads their debuts for Arsenal. Miguel Aziz, Ben Cottrell, Folarin Balogun, Charlie Patino and Ethan Nwaneri. Guardiola has handed out 24 debuts, and even in his first season, he was giving debuts in the League Cup to the likes of Pablo Maffeo, who wasn't guaranteed to make it, by the way. I was dying to see someone on the final day of the season against Wolves, and I think it's unfair someone like Mario Koscielny didn't get his chance when we had nothing to play for and Saka was 800,000 minutes into the season. But Mikel is nothing if not principled. I believe Mikel Arteta will do anything to win, which is a good thing. But if I were to critique him, he has to understand that 10 minutes here or there from a young player shouldn't make your team fall apart, and it could do wonders for the future of the club and for these young men too. It's not all about the result in certain games. The academy can be a huge moneymaker. That said, I do think we'll see some proper integration of young talent at Arsenal next season for a few reasons. Firstly, because Mikel has Arsenal by the absolute balls, if you'll excuse the expression. This screenshot the other day made me laugh. Yeah, we'll do what Mikel says. Oh, sorry. There were some rocky times early on, but there's no doubting who the main guy at the club is now. As much as it would be disappointing to go out of the Carabao Cup early on, for example, I don't think any Arsenal fan is going to care if we're in a title race and getting to the latter stages of the Champions League. Those things only matter when you're not, or you're Man United. So I think Mikel might feel freer to take risks with young players without feeling his job is on the line. And secondly, we have some extremely talented young players coming through. Nwaneri and a slightly less well-known young man by the name of Miles Lewis-Skelly are the envy of the youth football world, and both look set to make big waves next season. You don't become the youngest ever Premier League debutant by accident, and Mikel says Nwaneri has something special about him. He's just committed his future to Arsenal, supposedly for a staggering amount of money. But I have a limited understanding of these guys' games, and I'm mostly going on reputation. I'm not even sure I'm saying Nwaneri right, because I don't think it's Nwaneri, but I know someone who knows a lot about them both. So if you want proper in-depth analysis of both of the players mentioned, I've got TDK's very own and UEFA B licensed coach George Voutsas to talk about their games in incredible and illuminating detail for the bonus content. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. And it's on Patreon or YouTube memberships for just £3 a month to support the channel, support me, and get access to loads of other benefits and all the old bonus content from previous videos. The next, insert big name here, could be playing for us sooner than we think. And it's something to consider, as both of the young men mentioned play in midfield when we're pressuring the club to spend big money on the likes of Romeo Lavia. Finally, expectations and culture. One of the saddest things about humans, but perhaps what makes us great too, is our insatiable desire for progress. It can take you out of the present, stop you appreciating what you have, but it's also led to us being the most advanced species on this planet, through a human lens anyway. A year ago, we would have killed to be here. If you'd said to any Arsenal fan in summer 2022, would you take a title race, 5 points off first, Champions League, signing Declan Rice and Kai Havertz, and being one of the most exciting projects in world football in a year's time, they'd have told you to get off Football Manager. But we're here. And are we happy? Of course we're not. We want more signings, we need to catch City, why are we selling him, why are we buying him, etc, etc. And to be fair, I'm not satisfied either. The reason it's so exciting is because of what it could be, what we can achieve, and what that achievement would mean for the club. But with great power comes great responsibility, and we as a fan base need to get ready for a cultural change if we want to stay here. A cultural change, I believe, is on the way. Forgive me for repeating myself because I think I have said this before, but it bears repeating. For me, as an Arsenal fan, you cannot hold the two following beliefs simultaneously. They are inherently contradictory. Firstly, believing we should be competing with the likes of Real Madrid, the club who signed Jude Bellingham while having Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Aurelien Tchouameni, for now, and Federico Valverde, and Ceballos, And also, thinking when approaching the market and squad building, we need to be careful not to block the pathway of certain players, we shouldn't sign that player, and saying things like give X player 2 or 3 more seasons and see what happens. We have to start being ruthless. The whole point of a project, and the whole point of trusting the process, which I have done, is that there is an end goal, and we've nearly arrived there, and we're nearly at a point where we can start to compete. I believe Arteta is the guy who can make those types of ruthless decisions, but he needs the club culture to change along with him. We have to get used to the fact that from next season, as our expectations for silverware grow, we will have to start killing our darlings like never before. We have to aim for the best in class. Nothing else is going to get us there. I expect a lot of turmoil over the next couple of seasons. We're going to have long, hard discussions about players like Smith Rowe, Vieira, and even Gabby Jesus. Great players, top players, loyal servants to Arsenal Football Club, and clearly great guys. But if it becomes clear they won't let us challenge with Madrid year in, year out, and we're not ready to have a cultural shift to allow those players to move on, we may as well not have gone through the heartache of watching the likes of Shkodran and Mustafi play for our club. My point is this: when you're playing against the big boys, you have to start acting like them. I believe the club will start doing that, and I believe that culture change is necessary and coming. The question is, are you ready for that change? Death, taxes, me ending a video with a snappy one-liner, and a season-ending injury.